Welcome back to today. We're finally gonna finish this anvil.
3, 4.
Welcome back to Forge20. As you can see, it's kind of a nice but windy day here. Honestly, I've been waiting all week to finish this video, looking for some good weather so I could come outside and show you this in detail. But it has been windy, rainy, cold, and nasty all week long. Typical New England fall. And I have not had a chance to get back out here and run the forge that I set up to try and finish this anvil. So this is the first anvil. As you can see, it's been sitting out here all week and it's got kind of wet. Little patina starting on there. And you may have noticed at the end of the previous anvil video that the forge that we made out of the charcoal grill sort of fell apart. Basically, the legs were not strong enough to take the weight, and as I was pushing it back into the garage, it kind of collapsed, honestly. And it turned out to be kind of a mess, so I took the bricks apart and made this little forge. Now, this little forge works great. There's actually a box down underneath the box that you see. Maybe you can see it in there. There's a slot that goes down, and the pipe here, so I'm covered with leaves. The pipe just feeds in to the bottom of the box. So I started working on a pair of tongs. I bent these pieces straight, and I had this drill bit that I had been using to drill out the hardy on the anvil, which dropped on the floor and it broke off. Broke off here, you can see the tips going. So I was like, well, maybe I'll use it to make a drift to clean up that hardy hole. So I started banging on it. This is truly hard steel, being a nice drill bit. And you can see maybe that I got it to be a little bit square, enough that I could grind on it to make a drift. But I was having problems with this forge getting things really hot enough because I don't have good charcoal. I was using wood and some of the charcoal that I had made previously, which I burned up pretty fast. So I think the next project is going to be making more charcoal. And so I was having a hard time making a drift out of the drill. The next thing was I tried to make a cold chisel out of this piece of steel. Turns out this steel is not hardenable. Must be very low carbon. And we mangled the chisel point right away as soon as I tried to chisel anything with it. So then I thought I would hammer this piece out flat on the anvil and make a sort of the beginnings of a cup, so I could weld the drill bit into there and make the point of a drift. And you can see kind of how that turned out. I think I worked it a little bit too cold and it just snapped off. So I got to work on my blacksmithing techniques. I'm obviously just an amateur. So I thought, well, I need some more practice with this blacksmithing. Things aren't turning out the way I thought, and I need to get this anvil done. So what am I going to do? So it was back to the garage we go. That's some of the stuff that I tried that didn't really work. You can see there's a bunch of different files there, the hacksaws, the big files. I mean, that stuff works, the Dremel, everything I did, I kind of just kept eating away at the hole, top and bottom. I got cut down as deep as I could with the Dremel, with that big disc blade, and you can see around the edges there I got in. And then these are the ones that I've been having real success with though. So this file is a 3/8 bastard, and it's pretty aggressive. It's a Nicholson. It's a nice file. $5. Yeah. And all I did was get that down in the center hole in there, and I just kept cutting against, basically against this side here, over here, until I had a slot. And once I had a slot, I got in with this hacksaw blade. This is a high-speed steel, 24 tooth per inch blade. So it cuts right through this stuff, pretty much like butter, as long as you can keep it stiff. So I just got it down in, started working it back and forth, any direction I could. I actually had it on the big handle, on that handle. But once I got it so I could move it around a little more, I put it onto this one because it's faster. Don't have to keep setting the saw up inside there for whatever angle. So now I'm going to go back and do the other corner, which is I'll cut down there, and I'll make cuts across that. I'll make 3 cuts probably. One here, one here down into the corner, and then one into that other hole. And then once I have those slotted out, I can take this, which is a hole marking chisel, but it's hardened steel, and I can just get it in the hole, wiggle it back and forth until these pieces in there snap. Basically the same way we cut the rail in the first place, only on a smaller scale. And then it's flat file to get everything squared out. And like I said, it still looks pretty bad right now, but it'll clean up nice. It's going to end up being 1 1/4 inches, I think. Maybe 1 1/8 inches if we can keep it really tight. But that's fine because most of the heavy bolt stock I have to make a Hardy with is pretty thick stuff. So it should fit right in there, no problem. And that should be that. I tell you, this little bastard is really the thing. And let's not have any jokes about why I'm so good at this. I just am, that's all. Well, it's only been the blink of an eye to you, but it's been a couple of long days of looting for me. Got the mat in there. That thing seems to be full of water still. Open cell, probably. Every time I step on it. See that? You get water out especially down here in the corners. There you go. See there? Suppose the concrete will mop it out eventually. But that's the new drill setup. It's not super beautiful, but it's pretty effective shop furniture. Look at the beautiful clean floor. Everything's set up. Oh yeah, and this anvil. Isn't that what we're talking about? We're talking about the anvil. So, the hole's kind of square. It's not flat and done yet. Suppose I ought to get back to filing. Maybe I'll grind the horn a little bit. So I went over the whole thing with the 36 grit flap wheel on the grinder. Tried to do the sides. Stayed off of the flat spot because I don't want it to stay flat. Try to get the horn tuned up on the sides. I think that's looking pretty good now. You can see underneath. Got it nice and even. This Hardy still looks like crap. I probably ought to file that some more. But the good news is I think the top of the rail is really hard from years of repeated application of train. And because even when I touch it with the grinder or the flap wheel, it really doesn't want to grind. Whereas on the sides down here, it comes right off. So I think there's a thin layer on the top, especially because everything got mushroomed over on the sides. Like just, it's like getting hammered over and over and over again by the train. So it's probably a little denser there. Trying to get it all cleaned up. Not sure if I want to try and get all that scale off the sides. I got a wire wheel. I probably ought to just go file that hole some more. So I got this old drill. It's corded. Willing to sacrifice for the cause. It's got no chuck key, but that's my chuck key. That and a pair of pliers. Let's give this a shot and see how it works. See if it'll even touch the scale. Yeah, you know how it is. Once you start a thing. Alright, this is pretty good. Let me show you this. See here, this is the granular red iron 2 oxide, and that layer's coming off. And down beneath it is the nice black iron 3 oxide, which is much harder and won't come off with the wire wheel. So we're still going to have that black finish on there, which I kind of like. And then once I oil it all up, I think it'll look pretty dang spiffy. Look what I found. Stuff I didn't even know I had. But if we fix that to a board, we could use that to get the seat nice and flat. Hang on. You know, it occurs to me that this might be the kind of thing you'd want to do on a table. Oh yeah, look at that, huh? She's gonna clean up nice. Ooh, shiny. All right, welcome to the new Forge20 table. We're gonna lay that on there. So I couldn't find a board, and the board's kind of questionable flatness anyway. This is not too much better, but it's probably better than a piece of wood. So that sandpaper has adhesive back on it, which is why I was so happy to find it. Now if we can just get it to stick. The seat channel is nice and heavy and reasonably flat, and it should make a pretty good planer for the flat spot on the anvil. So let's see if I can get the backing off with gloves on. I had it started somewhere. There we go. And I'm just going to pick an edge and line it up with one edge or the other. And that'll give us at least one good square cutting edge. I wonder if it's worth cutting it off. I don't know. Let's try it like this and see how it goes. I'm not sure that's better than the file, but maybe. It seems to be hitting the whole surface all at once. I don't know, let's keep trying it. better. I'd love to get rid of these, but they're really deep. I don't know. I just looked at the video and it certainly doesn't look like I'm keeping it flat. I think I'm better off going back to the file. I mean, it's got a fairly decently flat surface, but it's so hard to keep that piece perpendicular to the work because this is so narrow. You know, it's only 3 or 4 inches wide, not even 3 inches. Now, let me just show you this. This is a machinist tool. So it's got the little hooky blade there for doing deburring holes. And it rotates. And as it does, kind of see it makes a little beveled edge there. So this is a piece of 1/2-inch rod. And it goes right through. Just had to clean the hole out a little bit and dress it with the file. There it is. Oh, and that's probably about as good as that seat's going to get. I cut it again with the file. I tried to cut against this back part here so it was nice and flat and square. I hit in here with the round file. But getting those gouges out, I'd have to go down another maybe 1/8 of an inch. So I'm not doing it. It's too much to do with the file. If anybody that I happen to know personally who works for a place that runs a machine shop on a daily basis, I don't know who that would be, wants to help me out and get this thing machined down flat, we'll do that. But I think for now we're just going to polish it and call it done. Oh, and there's still that little bit of filing left to do in the hole there. A little raggedy, junky looking. We'll get to it. 80 grit. Oh, no power. 80 grit. You can actually take off a lot of material with that 80 grit blade, so I got down in there and tried to bevel that edge a little more in hopes of getting rid of some more of that. And on the other side, I tried to square this edge as much as possible so I had a nice 90-degree torque too, or at least a nice clean corner anyway. So yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. The 80 grit won't touch the top either. I mean, it cleaned it off a little bit, but it still has that hard blue look to it. Might just be generations of oxides getting pounded into the rail. Hard to say. Because it's not really getting hot enough to change the crystal structure, so it shouldn't get really harder, but it might work hard in a little bit. But yeah, that hole. I'm going to get back to you on that. So I have these 2 sanding blocks. I'm going to use them to go after the seat here. So, because it should be pretty easy to keep flat with these. I mean, they're soft, but as long as you're gentle with them. Oh, and I looked at the video again, and I looked at the anvil when it was in the vise from when I was using the 36 grit flattener, and it was actually pretty flat. It's just that the anvil was mounted in the vise at an angle. So I thought I was keeping it flat. You can feel it when it hits across the whole surface. Like when it kind of, the piece kind of like, it clicks in, and then it wants to stay flat. And that's what was happening with that one. It just looked weird on the video because of the way the anvil was mounted in the vise. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. So that's after the 80. Up in there. I'll try the 100. And this is 220 on a reusable sanding block. And that's probably about as far as I'm going to bother to go. Sure makes those gouge marks look nice. Polish the horn up a little more. Okay, the truth is I probably wouldn't bother to make it look pretty if I wasn't doing this for a YouTube video. But once you start, man, you see every imperfection. We'll get them straightened out. So the thing is about getting divots out of a surface is that you don't polish the divot, you have to polish everything around the divot. Which means every place you have a divot, you have to remove a lot of material to get it out. Man, I wish this thing would focus. So I actually went back to the grinder with the 80 grit wheel. And now I'm working with 60 grit sheets of sandpaper. It's gonna be a long ride, folks. All right, now I think we're getting somewhere. I've been back to the grinder twice. Let's hit it with the 60 grit and see what it looks like. Okay, here we go after the old buff and rub treatment with the 60 grit. Oh! Alright, I think it actually looks worse on the camera than it does in person, but I still got two little dippy spots on the top I can't get out. It's getting there though. That's just 60 grit right there. And it is a cold, windy, starting to sprinkle, gray day outside. And I'm just not into finishing this hardy hole. But last night I went in the YouTube creators thing and I was looking, and they had a bunch of helpful suggestions. And I think what we need here is one of them fancy montages, maybe even with a little time lapse to make things go faster here. All right, I watched a guy do this. Let me see if I can. hang on a second. That wasn't it either. I think that was the cut cue. Hang on, it's all on the wrist, right? So. Little bit left from the. Let me see if I can tell this one shows you. See, that one's got. But that one was awfully deep. And if you look, you'll see it's a little thin on this side. I didn't want to keep going, so I just stopped. All the other surfaces are pretty good, and it's certainly going to serve its function. Went after that again with the file, got it flatter, got a little bit more of those marks out. Horn's a little rounder. But I think that's it for me, folks. It's been done over with 150 grit. cleaned up as much as I care to. I mean, after all, it's an anvil. You're going to hit hot metal on it. I think it looks pretty good.
Forge20.
Da-na-na!